Good morning, and thank you for being with us. I am Alero Edu, and this is Sunrise.
Good morning and welcome. Hope you have your cup of cocoa this morning. I've had one. Or cocoa. Well, just to be clear, cocoa is brown, and cocoa, well, you can make it any color you want.
But yellowish, white, cream.
Originally white,
butter,
yellow, whatever.
Benny.
And the thickness depends on your choice.
You can even make it so thin that you can drink it.
Yeah.
So it can be in your mug as well.
If you want cocoa to be like cocoa, you know just what to do. Just color it and make it thin. That's what she's saying. So, yeah, that's it. Wait, what?
Thank you for joining us. Yes. Now, let's get to it. Now, the federal government says it has identified 96 financiers of terrorism. And my immediate thought was, well then, if you've identified them, what are you waiting for? They have committed crimes against the nation. That's felony. Prosecute them, name them, prosecute them, and do the needful.
Well, you assume that that's all that.
Well, I'm getting all excited, aren't
I? No. You're not getting overly excited. It's not it's not just these 96 financiers. Said how NFIU has also identified 424 associates and supporters of terrorism, financiers. And the involvement of 123 companies and 33 BDCs.
So what are we waiting for?
Well, I guess...
Strike while the iron is hot.
Are you sure the iron hasn't gotten cold?
Oh, no.
Well, now, here is the thing. It's a review, right? From what we heard the minister talk about. It's a review of activities of some of the major anti-corruption agencies and, NFIU, EFCC, ICPC, and things that they have done, and monies that have been either recovered...
Monies that have been moving around. They have been moving around, as they say.
And I saw one figure about 133 million plus dollars. I think it was the EFCC or ICPC, one of those agencies. Like, so where is this money? I mean, is it for sharing? I don't know. I just asking questions.
Only, is it for sharing?
Just asking. I mean,
even if it's for sharing, your name won't be there.
No, come on.
You won't be on the list.
No, you can't do that. They're just, according to the NPC, there are 214 million plus Nigerians.
It won't be
so
on
if
the
we
list.
divide it, I should have at least $500,000. I don't know. But this is not funny. Because if you listen to the governor of Borno State as well, he also spoke that, look, we have lost on the average $9.6 million or billion worth of properties in the past how many years since of fighting this whole thing. So now many people have been talking about the fact that we have government, agencies, including the president, have been talking about the fact that we know that there are some financiers, people who have sympathies for acts of terrorism, in Nigeria against the state. You say it's a felony, and rightly so. So the question then is, now that they have been identified, to put a number to it means you have a list, right?
Benny.
So you have 96 financiers. You have 424 supporters, or those who are sympathetic to their cause, to the cause of those financiers. You have 123 companies. You have 33 bureaux de changes. And so now that we have these lists, what next?
The courts are going to be very, very busy soon.
Well, you are assuming that
we hope
there is activities, that activity will start.
We hope.
You have a right.
Well, if government has come out to say all these figures, I mean, it does mean that they're going to do something about it.
I wasn't at that press conference, and I'm almost certain that journalists must have asked the question or must have wanted to ask that question. So the question is, what next?
Well, journalists will keep asking that question until something is seen to be done.
Okay. Because if we have identified these criminals or criminal sympathizers or sympathizers with criminals and things are still the way they are,
and don't forget that, was it last week or 2 weeks ago that the president came out with renewed vigor to say that we are going to fight this thing to a standstill.
If memory serves me right, the president himself has been talking about illicit financial flows since 2015. Now, there are those who believe that there is complexity within the banks because you can't just how do you bring money into
well, isn't that what this shows? What the number of companies that are involved? Banks are also named
because you enter
not
a bank.
named, but
you enter a bank, you see that sign that says if you make transactions above this threshold, we are compelled by law
to tell the EFCC
and all of that. So when we had a guest yesterday, financial crime consultant or whatever, say, look, I said, is there supposed to be, doesn't this indicate that there's complicity within the banks? He says, of course, without even batting an eyelid. He said, of course there is complicity within the banks because there is an officer, I forgot the name of that officer, the office of that officer. There is someone who is supposed to sign off on the thresholds. So when we hear billions of dollars moving hands or moving from account to account, I'm wondering how so? If that law is efficient and active, how so?
Yeah.
So I guess, we only have to wait for the coming. Please, allow me to just say days. Because once it begins to get into weeks,
it becomes forgotten. But we're not going to allow this to be forgotten.
We will talk about it definitely.
This matter of terrorism has affected all parts of the nation. And so many people have lost their livelihoods, they lost lives. And we just can't sit back and let this continue.
Add to that the NIN-SIM linkage of about a year ago. Now, part of what was told to us concerning that matter,
for the reason for it,
yes, is that look, if we link your NIN national identity number to your SIM, we can trace calls, we can find out what is going on and all of that.
Yep.
So now the figure at least stands in the region of 73 million NIN SIM linkage already that we already have. So how efficient has that been in the fight against?
Yeah, we've always spoken about it on this program about all these kidnappers who, they always ask for ransom via phone. So how come their SIMs and their NINs cannot lead law enforcement to where they are?
Because to the best of my knowledge, we don't have burner phones in Nigeria yet, so I don't know how that's going to...
Oh, yes, and the population policy?
Yeah, the revised national policy on population and sustainable development.
Oh, God, that's a long nomenclature.
But
the long and short of it is that we're now beginning to think about how we're going to control our population. There are too many of us. There might be about 500 million of us by 2050. That's what this all boils down to. So please stop having children that you cannot look after.
Is it a new law? It's not. It's a revised law.
No, it was.
It's a revised policy,
well, it was not really enforced because you remember we spoke about this thing a few weeks ago, and I reminded everyone that remember Babangida's time when he said, "Well, government was not making it a law. Government was just advising." That each family should not have more than 4 children.
Well,
it was an advice.
Even that, okay, you want to put a question mark to it. A man that has 4 wives.
4 per wife.
Okay.
Ouch! Why would any woman want to go to the labor ward 7 times, for instance, 12 times? I shudder. Being a woman who's been to the labor ward,
Okay.
Yes. What are we talking about today?
Yes, we'll begin with the leadership question. It's
a very important question.
It's always going to be thorny. See, we have to talk about this leadership thing throughout this year so that people will ask the right questions when election time comes.
As we are facing
but this time around, we're talking about it, region-wide, throughout West Africa, especially in the space of this coup after coup that's been going on.
And if you were following the news in the course of the week, you would have heard Senator Smart Adeyemi talk about housing and how people should not be paying 2 years rent up front, 1 year's rent up front. And we were talking about the housing crisis. And we will tell you all you need to know about it.
The Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria, what that is about. Of course, we all know a thing or two about cancer How do we get to that cervical cancer-free Nigeria? More on that later.
And then we'll be talking about, well, as far as universities go, one of the newer universities in the country, St. Augustine University in Ekpe.
And the artist of the week is who?
He is a he.
Find out when that time comes on the program this morning.
So settle down, get your cocoa or cocoa or whatever you want to sit around with. And don't forget, you can be part of the program, especially don't forget that Twitter is back.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see you in just a bit.
When I look at my side, if you look at person,
Yes, thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to be looking at the leadership question. This, of course, as we are going into an election year, 2023. And as you all know, we have been in this democratic journey since 1999, which means we've been at it now for over 20 years. So is it not time for us to be getting better? Is it not time for us to be improving? And this question becomes more relevant when we consider that among our neighbors recently, we've had nothing but coup d'etat. Coup d'etat in Mali, coup d'etat in Burkina Faso, attempted coup here, attempted coup there. And what is the reason for all these coups coming up again in the 21st century? We thought we were done with them and we had all moved in the right direction of being able to elect our leaders. Well, I have said my say. Now we shall hand over to the panel, and our panel this morning is made up of Mr. John Essin, who's a lawyer and international expert on counter-terrorism and conflict resolution. He joins us via Zoom from the UK. Good morning, Mr. Essin.
For having me. Good morning.
Mr. Toye Shobande is also joining us via Zoom from the UK, and he's a strategic leadership expert and also a lawyer and public speaker. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here again. Thank you.
Yes, let's start with this leadership question, because we don't want to find ourselves where our neighbors have found themselves. So we must start taking care of this leadership thing and make sure that we elect leaders who will deliver what the people want. How do you think we should begin this journey, Mr. Essin, so that in 2023, the electorate will be asking the right questions of those who put themselves forward?
Well, I think we should begin by actually defining what leadership is and see if we can put Nigeria into that context. Come to a decision as to what Nigeria is actually at the moment, because I don't think what we are running in Nigeria is a leadership. Leadership essentially involves two or more parties with a bilateral consensus that sets out a vision at the outset and decides on a trajectory and transitional dynamics between the vision and the trajectory to move both the leadership and the electorate or the constituents to where the vision is. Now, where there's a deviation in that journey, which is usually by the leadership, because it's the leadership with the decision-making capabilities, where there is a deviation, then it constitutes a breach of contract. And when that happens, the constituents or the followers are not bound to that contract anymore. That is where that's where there's a problem. What Nigeria has, I would say, is a quasi-rulership, which is more of a dictatorship. But at sporadic intervals, there are leaders. At other times, there are dictators. So there's a simultaneous use of leadership and dictatorship. So we need to make these distinctions and decide where we want to be before we decide on where we are proceeding and how we are getting there.
Mr. Essin, is that to say that, okay, let me put it this way. Before we began to have the kind of leadership, actually style or form that we have now in Nigeria, we had leadership. we had our monarchies, we had our traditional institutions, and all of those. So, is it to say that these styles that we're looking at now, this democracy, constitutional democracy, elective positions, and all, is it to say that we haven't actually aptly domesticated them in Africa, or it's just something not for us? Or I don't know. How do you put this?
No, it's actually the deployment. I'll use Nigeria as an example. If you look at the central institutional power at the very highest level, there is a grossly disproportionate form of representation. You have Fulanis at the very high level dominating the government. And you'll also find out that the conflict that is most prominent, from which all these other conflicts generate, are by the Fulanis, particularly Boko Haram and ISWAP. And I suspect that because there's a cultural and religious affinity, cultural and religious affinities between the government at the central institutional level and Boko Haram and ISWAP, for instance, that the government is a bit reluctant, maybe it doesn't have the political will to actually accept the punishment that deserve what these groups do because of that relationship. So it comes down to, in some respects, a personal interest in this conflict, or the groups behind this conflict. That is what I think it is. It's more of a personal thing.
Mr. Shobande, you recently authored a book on what's curious for me in that title of the book is why leadership principles do not work in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes.
If you can draw some points, some of those reasons alluded to in the book, to why we're having these coups and near coups in different parts of West Africa, what are we dealing with here?
Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. I want to appreciate Mr. Essen's definition of leadership. That was very classic. And he's one of the few people that have expressed it from a leadership and a followership perspective. And like I mentioned in my book, The Leadership Myth, why leadership principles do not work in sub-Saharan Africa, is because simply we fail to put into perspective the cultural context in which those principles become applicable in our environment. Everything has to do with context. We imported a system of government from the UK. We worked with it for a while. We tried the parliamentary system. It didn't work. We threw it away. We went to pick up the presidential system in the US. We brought it here. We adopted a mode of constitution from the UK. It's not working. We threw it away. We brought in the constitutional style. We keep importing things. It's like somebody who is trying to pick pieces of other people to form his own structure. It's like you see something, if I see probably a shirt or a cloth on Mr. Essen, and Mr. Essen is probably taller than me. He has broader shoulders, and he looks so good in it. And I told my tailor, you know what, can you replicate what he's putting on? Just exactly the same size, the beauty, and let me put it on. And maybe I'm short. I'm not as tall as he is. I have short hands. I have tiny, all of those, and I get to put it on. I'm going to look like a joke. And that's exactly what is happening to us. There's a cultural context in which leadership plays out in our own environment. And when that cultural context is not put into perspective, what we have is what we are currently experiencing in terms of the fact that our system of governance is not representative enough. Leadership is representative in nature, representative based on a social contract between the led and the lead in terms of a direction. So what we have had over time is that we adopted brilliant leadership principles. We pay lip service to them. We talk about them. We do a whole lot of gymnastics around them. However, we fail to put into implementation the character, the orientation, the religious affiliation, the ethnic consciousness of the people that we are trying to impose those principles on.
But Mr.
And
Shubane,
I like
my apologies. Isn't the cultural context and all of those things, the representation that you talked about, isn't that the attempt the federal character policy made? Try to balance the sentiments, the cultural affiliations in the nation. I mean, using Nigeria as an example, as you said.
Thank you very much. But that is not in alignment with clear value systems. If you and I will, for any vision to work, any corporate objective, any policy in terms of the federal character to work, it has to pay credence to the culture. Why? Culture has the ability to eat vision for lunch. So no matter how fantastic that policy is, no matter how beautiful that federal character policy is, our cultural situation is eating it up for lunch, is making a joke of it. And when we say culture, we mean the prevailing mental model, the behavioral approach of the people in charge who are responsible for the implementation. So the body language, like I spoke about the last time that I was here, the body language of those who are in rulership in this nation does not indicate any interest in those policies.
You used the word rulership.
Yes, please.
Not leadership.
I'm deliberate about the use of the word rulership because I was laughing. I was asking myself, did Mr. Essen watch us the last time we discussed on this platform? The last time we discussed on this platform, you were the one particularly who asked me to distinguish between leadership and rulership. And I mentioned for you to identify leader, for you to define a leader is different from the definition of leadership. Then it's now different from the definition of a ruler and rulership. To know that, just study the body language of a leader. The body language of a leader is that he has a sense of responsibility and purposefulness towards the fact that he owes the people he's leading, accountability.
Is that why we are having coups in West Africa?
That's why we are practically having coups in West Africa right now. Because over the time, there is a consciousness that is going around the world. People now have the ability to speak up. Technology has liberalized the ability to speak up. Technology has liberalized the ability for people to observe other communities, other nations, see what is going on there, and desire that for themselves. People now have the liberty to travel more. There are more Africans now in diaspora, going abroad, experiencing liberty, experiencing good infrastructure, experiencing development. And each time they come back home, they keep asking the same question. Why is it that our leaders travel abroad, they school abroad, they live abroad, they have their children abroad, and they cannot replicate that experience, that development in this part of our world? That has resulted into that resentment. That growing resentment is not being addressed. That growing resentment is not consciously being addressed to the satisfaction of the people because the representation that they have in governance, they feel betrayed. And when people get frustrated, it's not the first time we are having a history of coup. Towards the end of last year, I sat down and I began to go through YouTube videos of the different coups that took place in Africa and the reasons why they took place. A lot of them, we abdicate that responsibility on the colonialists, saying that because the current government is not doing what they wanted them to do, that's why they are. That, to some extent, is true. But when you look at it, a lot of the guys who started the coups in the 60s, were revolutionary in their perspective. They are revolutionary ideas. In today's political sector, how many ideologies do you see the politicians discuss that is revolutionary? Let me not even use the word revolutionary, that is transformative.
Yeah. Mr. Essen, Mr. Shabande spoke earlier about us importing our system of government. First, we tried the parliamentary, and then we jettisoned it, and then we took the presidential system. But he didn't mention that in those systems, there's some kind of tutelage that the candidates go through. A man doesn't just wake up. I mean, Ayo can't just wake up tomorrow now and says he wants to be president of Nigeria. He will probably have gone from local government level, where he's local government chairman, and he goes on to be governor, and he goes on, they go through some kind of training, in quotes, before they are thrown up by their parties for the highest position in the land. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. So how come we imported those systems without importing the other things that go with them, that you have to do before you actually arrive at the big price?
Thank you for that question. Now, there are two components to that question, I think. The first one is, even if you import, whatever you import, you can train yourself to deploy. But where you're not honest enough, where you're not committed, where you don't have a sense of responsibility, where you're not where you're self-serving, self-indulgent, where you're opportunistic, you don't actually care about your constituents, then it doesn't matter what tutelage you have. Because if you're selfish and you're looking out for yourself, you're necessarily not going to be paying attention to those you're responsible for. And what that throws up is a deterrence by the constituents, because if you're not paying attention to them, then the only thing that keeps them aligned to that vision, whatever it is that deterrence. You lose deterrence. And when you lose deterrence as a government, it brings into question your legitimacy. And when they don't see you as legitimate, then they begin to fight, because then there's a gap there that it needs to be plugged. They begin to fight for your position because they want that authority. They want that decision-making capability because they don't think they can afford you leading them anymore. That is what. So there are two problems. You can have all the tutelage you want, but if you do not have the hearts for the people you're leading, if you're not committed to that responsibility, then whether you're tutored or not doesn't make any difference. Because the people you're borrowing from don't have two heads. They're human beings just like you, so you can do just as well, even though you borrowed. In some cases, you can do better if you're committed. So the basic fundamental premise is the commitment. I think the tutelage actually comes after that, behind it.
What you're saying now only raised one question in my mind when you talked about government, engagement and all those things. I just asked myself, so how do we throw up leaders? How do leaders come off the ranks? Earlier in the week, we were talking about something similar, and a friend, one of our guests, was telling us about how leadership is thrown up, previously, and Alero, literally quoted the man, though not using the same words, and gave the example of the UK where you are, that there was a group of leaders called the Big Four. One of them, I think, was Tony Blair, who they grew up through the ranks from the very, very local level, on and on and on and on, until they become until they became what they eventually became, to the top of the ladder in the country. So how then do we raise leaders? When you talk about leadership, I just checked now and I found out that, for instance, Burkina Faso is a French-speaking country. Official language is French. Ghana is English-speaking. So it really isn't in whether or not, and it's gratifying perhaps to say, because none of you have talked about the influence of colonial masters here. You've only talked about the individuals that are involved, the individual countries that are involved here. So because the way we are now, unless we arrest this trend, it would seem like we're just going to keep going the way we are. So if you would give an idea, how do we raise leaders that will have an all-encompassing influence on their people, that the people will accept them for who they are, and not just for, they'll feel ostracized by the people who have become leaders?
I think the first thing to consider would be individuals who take Nigeria for what it is. Individuals who do not put their own interests before the interest of others, leaders who do not, who are not Fulani before they are Nigerians, who are not Igbos before they are Nigerians, leaders who see Nigeria as a whole Nigeria, and their decisions reflect that. Okay, let's take the present government, for instance. I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but I think it's worth reiterating. In a government where there's an overt demonstrable capacity to fill in just people with whom you share religious affinities, cultural affinities, where you have groups like Boko Haram and Israel doing all they're doing, and you don't address them. And another thing is the question of definition. Definitions are very important because, okay, let me just make a point about Islam. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a political movement with a religious component. And it is the most dynamic countercultural revolution of the last 20 years. And it's put Nigeria at the forefront of the global war on terror. Now, how is the government, how is the leadership addressing that? That is the most profound problem that Nigeria has at the moment. How is the leadership, in quotes, addressing that? That would tell you if what we have is the leadership, if it has the right to even be a leadership for Nigeria at the moment, or where we are.
But there are those who will argue with you on that one because for many, many in this country, Islam is a religion.
Full stop.
So if there are those who are, using political affiliation to it, that's another thing altogether. And well, perhaps on that you might be right. But let me take this to...
question.
Yeah. Yes, let me take this to Mr. Shubande. You want to react to that?
Yes, I want to react to that.
Okay.
In the question you raised, especially with what you talked about in terms of throwing up leaders, in my journey of research and discovery, when I wrote that book, Why Leadership Principles Do Not Work in Sub-Saharan Africa, some of these countries that the coups are coming up right now, I was privileged to visit those countries. And I was able to relate to what I have read in history books, what I have read in newspapers with the environment and the situation in those countries. You talked about the fact that Ghana is English speaking, Burkina Faso is French speaking. We've not referenced the the influence of. For how long are we going to blame the colonialists for our failures? It will be responsible for an 18-year-old child who refuses to walk, and they ask him, why are you unable to walk? Why are you still crawling at 18 or at 21? And he says, oh, it's because my parents did not teach me how to walk. We cannot continue to... Now, that may form a part of... But we can't continue to do the blame game anymore. We've been existing for 50, 60 years. So what I'm making a point on right now is this. To develop leaders like Tony Blair, to have a system that throws up leaders from the local level down to the national level, is to have what we call a leadership development system. Nationally, as part of our national policy or as part of our orientation as a people, our approach to leadership before the colonial masters came, when they were here and after they left, in terms of our cultural process, we have a leadership development system, a grooming system. We know it as apprenticeship in the economic balance. You can reverse it into the political sector as well. Everyone who wants to become, quote and unquote, a tailor in Nigeria goes through apprenticeship.
But that happens, Mr. Shubande. It happens.
Yes,
maybe not on a large scale.
Organized.
It
happens.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, is it institutionalized?
No.
It's not institutionalized. It is informal. As long as it's not that it is not there, it is there. Some of our political representatives right now grew up from that structure. It's not institutionalized for it to be of benefit to the broad population of the people, such that we know the model, we know the steps, we know the how.
So how do we institutionalize that?
That's where it becomes a national policy that starts from the local level. Look at the current policy of government on local government elections and local government participation. Nations that are serious-minded about development know that development does not start at the national level.
No.
You don't talk about national development. You talk about development from the grassroots. You talk about development where the government structure is closer to the people. State government, national government do not have any business with local infrastructure, with road construction, pipe-borne water. They don't. It's a waste of executive time for a governor to go and sit down and be commissioning roads and be commissioning pipe-borne waters. Those are the responsibility of the local councillors.
Yeah.
That is where governance goes down to the grassroots, where people learn the rudimentary process of infrastructural development, of town hall meetings, deliberation, where you'll be able to harness the human resource and human capacity to gel them and mobilize them towards a development. It is the aggregate component of those local development at the various grassroots that takes effect at the state level and it goes to the national level. But we want to do it at the national level and for it to go down. It's not possible.
Okay, now my apologies,
Okay.
Alero. So this leadership question thing, we're talking along the line of security in West Africa. How do you see that playing out?
It's a symptom. It's a byproduct of the lack of responsibility on the part of the rulership. What we are saying in terms of security is a byproduct. I'm trying to use a medical term for it, but because I'm not a medical practitioner, but let me just limit it to my own terminologies. That when you see a breakdown in leadership responsibility, it's like you have a car, you have failed to service the car, you have failed to oil the car, you have failed to put gas in the car. You just jump into the car and drive over as usual. And one day, the car begins to cough and it refuses to move. There are certain responsibilities. My definition of leadership at all points in time, especially in my doctoral program, is that leadership is taking responsibility. So the security question is the failure of those who are in political institutions, who are in governance, who are holding political offices, is the lack and their failure of taking responsibility for the things that they signed, that contract, that social contract they signed with the followership. And that's why we have insecurity. It's like a child whose father is failed to take care or take responsibility for his education, for his feeding. The child is hungry. He goes into the town. He goes into the city. He sees his own colleagues going to school every morning. They can eat. They're well-dressed. I drive through the traffic in Lagos. I see how those children look into the car. And I see how they look into the car looking at my children. They look, the longing in their eyes is that these children are privileged. Sitting in an AC car, looking good, looking fresh. They admire it. They aspire, but sometimes they are angry. They get angry, they get frustrated, and they wonder why they don't deserve that kind of life. And they look at their father and they're asking, why is it that it's this man that gave birth to me? Why did I come into this kind of family? Why did I not? Then if that aspiration is not well guided, if that desire is not well structured, they result into crime of taking it by force. And that's why if you are not very careful now, we see people begging on the road, begging on the street, knocking on our windows, asking us to give them money. It's a security question. They've stopped that. Right on Ogudu Road in Lagos, very close to where the Apostolic Church is. They now rob in broad daylight. I was attacked twice. Broad daylight, 12 in the afternoon. They hit on my glass so hard and told me they were going to break it down if I don't give them money because they are hungry. That is a reaction to irresponsible leadership that we have had in this country for so long. So it is not a shock that those who are in charge of the gun, it is not surprising that those who are in charge of the instrument of violence are equally frustrated, are equally maltreated, are equally not reckoned with. And we expect that we've empowered them with the gun to protect us, they will not react against us. It's like a man who brought a lion into his house as a pet and is refusing to feed the lion. The lion will wake up one day and take his children for lunch.
Of course.
And that's exactly what we are experiencing with the security situation in our country. And a lot of the security situation across West Africa is grossly underreported. It's grossly underreported. It is the shocking ones that now create a consciousness.
Okay.
The ones where we now have 17-year-old, 18-year-old doing ritual killings.
Okay.
So when you now have people in military who have the gun, who have the instrument of violence, then what can we do? Okay,
Mr. Hyson, something that Mr. Shobande said earlier, which brought to my mind the video that made the rounds some time ago, where there was a short history of the UAE showing all the marvels in the land, and where renowned talk show host and comedian Steve Harvey asked the question, who does this in 50 years? It must be leaders who have a vision and a love of their people. I would like your comment on that closing statement of Steve Harvey's.
That comes from the love for the people. And the people have the consciousness that the leadership has a love for them, that the leadership has its interest, not just the leadership's, but the followers' interest. So, like we said at the very beginning, that is a proper leadership in contract with the led that agree, that have a bilateral understanding, a consensus that here is the vision, this is the trajectory, these are the components, the dynamics within from the trajectory, from when it's agreed to where the vision is. So the followers would definitely follow the leader because they know the leader has its interest. And because they're working together, they're more likely to fulfill that vision because everyone is committed to it. But where you have a leadership that has lost legitimacy, that has lost deterrence, and therefore it generates a conflict between the rulership and the people that are supposed to follow that are not following anymore because they want the leadership position, that is where then you have a problem. Why they were able to do that is because of the love for the people and the people recognizing that the leadership has a love for it and that the only way that vision can be fulfilled is by working together.
Mr. Hyson, we'll start winding down now. So what would be your advice to Nigerians as they enter an election year? What kinds of questions should we be asking those who are putting themselves forward? What should we be looking for in these people who are putting themselves forward?
What is your agenda? What are you promising to do? What are the timelines? What is your plan? What are the stages?
Timelines?
What are the for the stages?
Okay.
That is the question. Those are the questions you ask.
You said
and the answers have to be expressed.
You said timelines, did you?
Yes.
Okay, but sometimes they get there and they find that there isn't money to do what they promised to do. Well, they tell us there isn't money.
But because I don't think there's enough transparency. I don't think there's enough accountability within the Nigerian structure. So that needs to be sorted out as well. They may tell us there's not the money, but how do we know there's not the money? How do we know if there's not enough transparency?
Okay. Mr. Shobande, what would be your advice to us as we look forward to 2023?
My advice is Nigerians should lower their expectations. 2023 is another election that will repeat itself the way other elections have been coming. My advice is Nigerians should stop breaking their own hearts. It's heartbreaking to elect and elect and elect, and we keep mobilizing to elect. So lower your expectations. You can never change Nigeria in 4 years or 8 years tenure of a governor, a president, or a councillor.
You can
Don't
start.
let anybody come lying to you that they will change your country, they will change your state in 4 years or in 8 years. It is not true. The decadence that we have experienced in this nation has been long run for the past 20, 30 years. It will take another 20, 30 years of serious-mindedness, of accountability, of benevolent leadership, of transparency, of responsible leadership to restructure this nation. Our problem is systemic. Our problem is not only a problem of those who are in political leadership, our problem is also largely the followership as well. It's as if the followership themselves do not even want development for themselves. As bad as it is, some leaders are genuine, they are interested in governance, in doing the right thing, but the people around them are not even interested in doing the right thing. They're just there to gain, to grab, and to be self-serving. So Nigerians, the reality is this. As you are going to the polls, it is not enough to pray and stop. We've prayed too much in this country, and that is what is killing us. So let's forget all of those. It's not because I don't believe in God. It's not because I don't believe in prayer. When you pray, correspond it with actions. The action is this. Invite your political aspirants, especially at the local level, for town hall meetings where you can question them directly.
Okay.
Ask them for their personal value system. What is their personal value system? Is that personal
Thank you,
value
Mr.
system in
Shobade.
alignment with their
Thank
policies?
you, Mr. Shobade. We just need to anchor it here. We've run completely out of time. Mr. Toye Shobade, strategic leadership expert and lawyer and public speaker, who joined us via Zoom, and Mr. John Essen, lawyer and international expert on counterterrorism and conflict resolution, who also joined us via Zoom, both from the UK. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Sunrise will be back with another interesting subject in just a moment. Stay with us.
I'm trying to find the nexus between that song and the topic. It's because you don't know your time that you are troubled.
Okay.
So you don't
God's
know the time.
is the best when you are going to own your own house.
So all those your pay small. Anyway.
So dear.
Of course, you know that deliberation has been ongoing in the Senate now on stopping landlords from collecting yearly house rent payment. Meanwhile, a bill seeking to stop landlords in the Federal Capital Territory from demanding yearly advance rent payment from tenants has passed second reading during the week. Last year, the Lagos State Governor also unveiled its own plan for monthly rent scheme. So we'll take a closer look at this. And if indeed this will favor low-income earners in the society, as well as not being detrimental to landlords. Just to be clear, so when the National Assembly says they want to stop yearly rent payment in the FCT, don't forget that the National Assembly is the State House of Assembly for the Federal Capital.
For the Federal Capital.
Just to be clear. So
yes.
if that law comes out, it is not a national law.
Barely. No, you know, when you said Lagos State is also looking at it, I was laughing because I just thought, okay, so when you go to rent a house and you say, but Lagos State said, the landlord will tell you, okay, go and take house from Lagos State.
No, well, Lagos State is here to clear themselves.
Go and take house from Lagos State.
Lagos State is here to clear, to clear themselves. Toke Benson Awoyinka is Special Advisor on Housing to the Lagos State Governor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and good morning.
Also joining us is Babajide Okusaga, who is a real estate expert. He joins us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning. All right, I guess as my director would say, he's still constructing that. Well, it's talking about construction. Mrs. Benson Awoyinka, this whole housing crisis and stuff, you, of course, must be familiar with what the member of the Senator, Smart Adeyemi, said when he proposed that bill. How did that come across to you?
Well, on the part of Lagos, we are not going to do a law. We have a monthly tenancy scheme, and it's a government scheme that I think is beneficial to the tenants and most beneficial to the landlords. Because for the landlords, it is rent guarantee. And under the scheme, we are coming up with some private sector people who would pay off the landlord on an annual basis, but the tenant pays on a monthly basis. So it's going to create a credit system where people would get used to paying their bills monthly, same way it's done all over the world. The SPV or the private sector people who are going to join up with government to do this are also helping us create that nature where people get used to paying their bills monthly, the same way you pay your electricity bill and your water bill, especially people who live in private estates. So to me, when we had a stakeholders in December at the Real Estate Stakeholders Conference, when Mr. Governor announced this program, the second day was a day to deliberate with landlords and people in the sector. And we found out that it was more beneficial to the landlords because it was guaranteeing that they would get their rents. So no longer would your tenant come up to you and say, I've not collected my Isusu this month. Can you please give me one more month or give me 3 weeks? Because once that tenant is pre-qualified, has a good income, commensurate to the kind of tenancy he's going to or wants to go into, and we have pre-qualified them, we go ahead and we make sure that the landlord gets his
paid.
funds.
Madam, one of the things that comes to me about this thing, because we had a chat, about this, earlier with my colleagues, and I'm like, this idea is not new in Lagos. I remember it was in the 70s that I heard that song under the Mobolaji Johnson government. I don't know the name of the musician who sang something like Category B, Dijele Ama, Adiyele Pako, 10 Naira Leo Maso.
Oh, wow.
You definitely don't know that song.
Yeah.
But
No,
I remember that song and I said, wait a minute, maybe that is part of that kind of policy. So what happened along the line?
So also, I must tell you, we have our rent-to-own scheme. And under the rent-to-own scheme, we've always and only collected on a monthly basis. So what we do under the rent-to-own, we sell homes, and you put down 5% of the cost of the unit, and then pay over a 10-year period monthly. To us, we have always encouraged monthly payments.
My challenge here is, let me take this to Mr. Okusaga. You are not unaware of this policy of the Lagos State government and the proposition of the National Assembly as well. First of all, how does that come across to you?
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
My own take in, one thing people are underestimating is that the Lagos State governor is a very hands-on person when it comes to real estate. He turned around LSDPC within 2 years, did a magnificent joint venture, and which also have monthly rental scheme. But one thing I'm trying to, the government should go into this thing with caution, because already we have a lot of systematic risk that the businesses are facing. And the business people that are in real estate are trying to reduce their own unsystematic risk, which is the risk they face as an enterprise. By you getting into their decision, that means you are influencing their day-to-day operation that reduces their risk. It's a good idea. It's already happening in Lagos. A lot of investment we are into already paying rental monthly. And it's both profitable for the landlord and for the tenant. Especially now, you can do direct debits from someone's account when he gives you the instruction. Right now, you can even do direct debits. A commercial bank that is licensed by CBN or a microfinance can do direct debit using somebody's BVN. So that's why you are paying 1 month. You can have a direct debit to pay the person on a monthly basis. Sign off to make sure that your landlord can debit your money on a monthly basis. So this has already automated. These are already signed, approved by CBN. Also, even when you are owing your landlord, there's a law that you can list the person as your debtor on under the credit bureau. So this was not there 2-3 years ago. So their innovation, identity management is getting better. So now know your tenants. So if you rent a house to Mr. Babajide Okusaga, this is the person that is Babajide Okusaga because this is his BVN number, this is the NIM. Identity management is getting better. It's a fantastic idea, but I think government should ensure the business people, the owners of the house are carried along. They are influenced. These are the decisions they make, but the government is able to intrude into their decision-making process so that it can be influenced by the forces of the market. Not that the government says you must do this.
Does this, just a moment, Mr. Okusaga, does this policy, in your opinion, Lagos is doing something about it, the FCT is considering it, does this in any way suggest to you that perhaps you need to pay a little more attention to the peculiarity of the locations? Lagos, for instance, has various categories of areas. So does the Federal Capital Territory. Various, areas of development, modernity, if I can use the term, and all of that. Do you think this policy has any intention or any bias for such considerations?
The way you can judge Lagos State, the last time they did something in this regard was the tenancy law in Fashola, and they exempted some areas. It was not one can fit all. They removed Apapa, Ikeja, Abia, and Ikoyi. They removed places that were used for hospitals, for rehabilitation. They removed schools, hostels from this law. So I know the Lagos State government are hands-on when it comes to it. They've done, apart from all the state, they've done very well. And as I said, what they need to do is to ensure that they carry the private sector along. You cannot compare what Lagos State government is doing, what they are doing in Abuja. You cannot just come and say you want to make a law and put must take 1 year. And Abuja is quite different from Lagos. You must make sure that as I said now, monthly rental is already been done is already happening in Lagos, and it's a very, very good business idea because it's being followed up by other advancements in technology and in the financial service. But the case is different from Abuja because I can see that Lagos State government is following all these steps. They are doing fantastically well with what they are doing with the rent-to-own scheme. The rent-to-own scheme is not really a new idea. We've always been doing it for immovable assets. Look at equipment leasing, whereby you pay monthly rentals over the 80% life, and you pay advanced rentals for this equipment. So if you move this from immovable equipment to now, from movable equipment to immovable equipment, it's still the same thing. But it must be commercially viable. The business people must take a lead. What does government do? Sit them down and ensure that they see the profitability in this thing. It can be a win-win situation. Or else, people say, one thing, the Lagos State governor will give you the house to rent.
Okay.
Look at what's happening.
Okay, Mr. Kusaga. Okay, Mr. Kusaga. Mrs. Benson Awenka, how feasible do you think this is going to be in light of the fact that banks don't give long-term loans? So the landlord, for instance, hasn't got a long-term loan to build his house. So how are you going to convince him to accept monthly rents when he has a huge loan that is accrued, is attracting huge interest rates to pay to the bank?
Remember I said it's a win-win situation for both. The landlord gets his money up front, so the landlord is not losing anything. The consortium of financiers who have put the funds together in collaboration with Lagos State government would pay the landlord annually. So the landlord in this case has rent guarantees. Monies are guaranteed, or money is guaranteed. He gets paid annually. The tenant is the one who gets the laxity of paying monthly. Like Mr. Kusaga said, we are also cognizant of the fact that people have invested in building. Yeah. People have gone into building these homes as retirement plans, and we definitely don't want to disenfranchise anybody. We don't make policies. When we sit down to come up with policies, it's been thoroughly thought through over a long period of time. We're not spontaneous. So of course,
that's good to hear.
And that is why we're in collaboration with the private sector. Government doesn't seek to do things that we shouldn't be into. We shouldn't be into business. So we know we're social. So to us, it's a social investment program for us to create that enabling environment for people to be able to do this. He said, yes, it's been going on for a while, but if you all go to your mortgage bank or you go to your finance house to get these loans, you're asked to bring an arm and a leg. You're given a 28% interest rate, or the finance house tells you it's 2.5% monthly. At the end of the day, convert that for 12 months is 24%, plus this percentage, that administrative fee, that fee. So at the end of the day, we have sat down and thought about it and said, come, Lagos wants to get into a social investment program. How can you, as financiers, come together with us, sit down, think out this policy, not breaking the banks and not putting those interest rates high up there where negotiations are going to say, we might as well go to the bank. But in this instance, the landlord has been taken care of. And we're going to continue our engagements. We're going to further engage people. We're engaging the insurance industry now because we also think insurance is a key aspect of this program. We need to make sure that those houses are in fit and habitable condition. As you know, right now, Lagos State government is going on through the Ministry of Fiscal Planning, an agency called Lagos Building Control Agency, making sure that homes are fit and habitable. And we're insisting on certificates to be gotten if that home is a new home that is being completed. You must have that certificate. So for us, we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's and making sure that everybody in that value chain sits back and says, oh, thank you, Mr. Governor. Yes.
Okay. Is there any particular areas that Lagos State is looking at?
So it's free. It's available to anybody who is interested.
If I wanted to go and take a house in Ikoyi, for instance.
One of the arguments that was put forward was, why do we have to give it to people who live in the Lekki axis or whatever? And one of my points is, they're taxpayers as well. So if government is going to have that policy, it should be a policy that is available to all. So somebody walks in...
Is that to say that there are conditions to the...
That's the tenancy law.
Yeah.
That's the tenancy law. The tenancy law does not enforce the 1 year annual tenancy law in places like Ikoyi, VI, Apapa.
No, I mean, when
GRA.
you talked about tax paying, so anyone who wants to benefit from this scheme has to be a taxpayer.
Everybody in Lagos should be a taxpayer.
No, I mean, I'm talking about concerning this scheme.
So right now, we're not coming up with, we need to see your tax. No. No, I'm just saying that as long as you're a taxpayer in Lagos.
There are those who don't have jobs.
I understand. So those who don't have jobs also would not be able to partake in this because you're pre-qualified. You must be gainfully employed.
Yeah. And if the person loses a job?
Exactly. I spoke about insurance. So we have loss of income insurance. And I think that is a stopgap for about 1 to 3 months where the insurance company is the one who is paying back the financial institution or the consortium. So that's why I'm saying we're thinking it through. We're looking at the areas that are...
What if the person doesn't eventually get a job in 6 months?
Well, then the person loses the home.
Oh, wow.
Because we also do not want people to be sit-tight tenants. And that's the reason why we're trying to protect the landlords. And that's why the landlords are being paid up front. So all over Lagos today, you have people, because at that stakeholders, we found out that people came and said, oh, we have tenants who have not paid off for 3 years. They haven't paid for 2 years. These are things that we're holding on to, assets that we're holding on to for retirement. So if I'm a retiree and I have this asset, and my tenant is a sit-tight tenant, I'm in the law courts for the next 10 years.
Yes.
So what are we doing about it? And that's why we thought of, insurance must take that place and give you a period of time where you need to get a job. If you don't get that job, because we already paid the landlord, he's free, he's home free. So it depends now on the consortium to get that tenant out. If you have to downgrade your tenancy, you downgrade your tenancy because things happen. So I'm going to go back to the man who lives in Lekki or who works in Lekki and lives in Agbado and puts pressure on our traffic system because he has to go through Ikeja, go through Obalende, go through CMS to get to Lekki. And then somebody says, if somebody wants to live in Lekki, and I say, sometimes it's not by choice. We don't want people who work in hospitals, who work in banks, who work in the law courts in Lagos, having to travel that far and put pressure on our traffic system. So when you know you have that job and you're pre-qualified, we know you can afford the rent, we come in and we do that stopgap for you. So we reduce traffic on our roads. So the ripple effect is more than we're all seeing now. It's going to create a very good credit system for Lagosians and make people more responsible, having to pay their bills on a monthly basis like we already do with some of the facilities that we're enjoying, Okay. So it's going to change a mindset of the people.
Mr. Okusaga, do you see this concept being made national, cascading it all over the nation? Do you see it as something that can be worked out?
I think one thing which you should look into is that income always influence capacity and your ability to repay for credit. So 60% of the economic activity happens in the Southwest, and over 50% of that happens in Lagos. But until we make sure that people in those other parts of the country can actually repay on a monthly basis. Another thing we should look at is that some of the flows of some of these people are not monthly, some of them are daily, some of them are weekly, some of them can be monthly, and some of them can be in 6 months. So we should look at this thing. And what we think, if we want to do this nationally, let's look at what Lagos is doing. They're doing a very good job. I think they've done this consultation like almost 4 or 5 times. They're always in a hotel. I think I've attended to, and it's very, very interactive. The governor himself move around, answer questions, and I think it brings stakeholders to talk about how they see this thing, what they are talking about at that point in time. Private sector, landlord. So if you are going to emulate that in other states, look at the income of your people. Don't take one cap fits all. Don't think because Lagos State is doing it and it's on a monthly basis. Your own people may be a lot of traders and get their money in trickles. Now, this consultant, the Lagos State using can be mortgage banks. In your area, are you going to use microfinance bank to collect this money on a daily basis or the weekly basis? It's possible, but it should be gradual. Because Lagos is the economic nerve center and proximity to business district drive rents up. And at times you need to make sure you break it into monthly.
What?
But you must be cautious about it, get it national. As I said, what they are doing in Abuja is good, but you should take a clue from Lagos. Don't just make laws, consult with the owners. You see, let's make it clear. A building on its own, it's a business, which is major cash flow is rental. So somebody has invested money in business and his major cash flow is rental, and you're telling how you want him to collect his money. No, he must see value in the profitability, which is you look at the risk and the return and make sure it's something you can manage. So if you are going to do it nationwide, it should follow something like what Lagos State is doing.
But
consult the owners of these businesses and influence that decision.
But generally, Mr. Kusaga, you also know that whether it's a federal government or a state government idea or policy or law or initiative, it's usually that trust challenge. Governments over the years have so disappointed people that they make a promise or they say something, they have come again. And they say it and they don't believe it. And the policies usually just go down. So in terms of sustainability, because just as you said, Mr. Governor is in the industry, all right? So it's only natural that he would pursue that with all of his vigor, because that's what he has done for a good number of, a little while before he became the governor. So, but in terms of sustainability of that project, of that idea, of that policy, of the initiative that is going on now that you so highly praise, what are the bottlenecks that you, as an industry player, would say, this needs to be worked, this needs to be paid close attention to if it is going to be sustainable beyond this government?
See, it should be institutionalized. That's the first thing. Yes, the government has started it, and it should be institutionalized. And all relevant stakeholders, the estate surveyors, the banks, should be carried along. And let me tell you something about Nigeria, especially Nigerian businessmen. If the government can look at what the government did in the 1990s in banking, we still have the effect today because it was private sector driven.
Exactly.
Look at what happened with TV, with AIT, with channels, with Now Arise. It was a private sector initiative. Government supported it and created liberalization in that space. If this same thing is done and is led by the private sector, the private sector in Nigeria, especially Lagos, are very resilient, especially the ones in the real estate sector. What do you need to do? Let them buy into it, create an enabling environment, create a framework that can make it work and institutionalize it before the governor of Lagos leaves. If this is done, it will be sustainable. Now, I as the industry expert, I know that it's a profitable venture, both for the banks, the developers, the investors, and the end user. But the government must make sure the owners of business see it's going to be positive for them on the long run. And one thing people are not paying attention to, when you do monthly rentals, your eviction processes also, your eviction time limit also changes.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a monthly tenant, I only give you a month for eviction.
Not 6 months.
Not 6 months.
Yes.
So it also increases the profit for the investor and the developer. But also increases the risk of the end user. So if they are giving 1 month to go and look for where I can put my family, it becomes risky. So if you give an option, do you want to pay 1 year or monthly? Some people can go for 1 year, so it's not compulsory. Do you want to, we make it optional. So for a family man like me, I want to pay 1 year. So if you say you want to use your house, at least you give me 6 months, send to my family. But for younger guys, if I was single, I won't mind. 1 month, it's okay for me. So we should look at this thing, and government should balance it. In trying to protect the end user, you may even be exposing them more. So that's why we need to institutionalize it. But I can tell you, Lagos have been doing a fantastic job, but they need to do more consultation. Because look at it now, a lot of brokers, a lot of agents will lose their revenue. Because most of them, because they pay 1 year, they get good revenue to run their business. How do you sustain this? Some of these companies can be sabotaging this because they think their income will not be sustained. So you need to ensure these people are carried along. But it's a fantastic idea. Suitable. Don't forget that apart from those people that are collecting money on the monthly basis, they are the economic active poor. These are people like contractors that collect their money, that do their job in January, and they are not paid until March. How is this sustainable? What about the paper seller, the yam seller that gets his money in trickles? What about the woman that starts selling at 4 a.m. and closes by 11 a.m. and gets his own money daily?
No, Mr. Kusaga, they will be looking for face me and face you. They won't be looking to go rent a flat.
You see, one thing is this. There's something it's called the Lagos poor. The Lagos poor is as rich as those guys that work in the office. But the only thing that we have not been able to capture their flow. Their flow is daily. They don't do monthly, quarterly, half-yearly. Now, there's other things that want to take them. Cigarettes are sold in trickles. Prostitution are done in trickles. Even drugs are done in trickles. So all the bad things are willing to take their money from them. All the good things, we say wait till the end of the month. Before the end of the month comes, that money is gone. So we have to also look at how we can get this money from these people to ensure they can put into the rent-to-own scheme. Now, it doesn't need to be monthly. Can we work with microfinance banks to ensure you collect money from these people on a daily basis? They're already doing it. How can we do quarterly for people that are contractors that don't get their money on time? They've done the work in January, they're going to pay them in March or April. And these people also work for the government. So we should be able to capture everybody into this scheme.
Okay. Now, madam, Mr. Kusaga raised something. He's an industry player. So, of course, he's interested more in getting, in fact, if possible, 3 years rent, because his commission will then be on the 3 years rent that he has collected. But you are saying now monthly rent. So the poor agent only gets a commission on that 1 month's rent.
The agent gets a commission on the yearly rent because the landlord has gotten his rent annually.
Okay. So the consortium will also pay his commission.
Definitely. So in the consortium, in that workability, is the agent, the landlord, the lawyer, administrative fees, and cost of funds. Everything put together, negotiated to the barest minimum, because government has said to the financial institutions, it is a social investment program. We cannot go with your commercial rates. They have to be single digits.
So what the tenant...
you can never go out as an individual and get a single digit cost of fund. Never. You can't.
So what the tenant is therefore paying is the monthly rent plus all those other fees divided into 12.
So let me give you a scenario. We worked something out. Assuming your rent is 1 million naira a year. With the cost of funds, the legal, the agency, everything. If you go out into the market, the agents are very, very recalcitrant agents who tell you, oh, if you're going to stay in that house for 3 years, because you're going to be paying the landlord after this year, you're going to give me agency for 3 years. So he says, I want 10%. So he collects 300,000 naira as agency on that. We're working on that factor already. So then the lawyer comes, the lawyer collects maybe 10%,
10%
also.
legal.
That's 40% already. That's 1.4 million. And then he tells you, we have to go do inspection, we need to do this. Trickle. Maybe
1.5.
1.5. So with what the government is putting together, the tenant pays 98,000 naira monthly. Times 12 months is 1,150,000. He's cut away everything, all the frivolities that the agent has come up with. We're working on those agents. We wish they would sit down and collaborate with government, because to us, we don't want to get anybody out of business. To us, we want to make sure that the entire value chain is satisfied, and that's why we keep holding those stakeholder engagement meetings and telling them, no, we're thinking about you too. You are not going to be put out of business. Now the landlords know that they can get their monies. Now the tenant knows that he has that ease. He doesn't have to think of paying that 1 million naira plus school fees,
Bulk.
plus this, plus that. He's seen the suitability. And Mr. Okusaga mentioned the people who work trickle this monthly, daily, quarterly, weekly. I said something. There's a pre-qualification process. And that pre-qualification process looks at your finances 12 to 18 months back and see where the stabilizing factor is. So assuming I work on a daily basis and I get paid maybe weekly or something, but there's a constant in my account, assuming I'm the tenant who wants to pay the 1 million naira, and there's a constant in my account. At any point in time you look at my account, I have maybe 250,000 naira as balance. Over a period of time. It means that without batting an eyelid, I can pay that 98,000 naira. And so it would not depend on, oh, we're waiting for him to get that 50,000 naira today, 50,000 naira the next week, 50,000 naira for the... There's a constant that we can actually use to pre-qualify him. And you know, this pre-qualification process happens all the time. If you want to get a loan as well, if you do a monthly Lagos Homes scheme as well, they pay monthly, and we haven't had defaults.
Yes, that's where I was going to take you next.
It's very minimal.
The Lagos Home Scheme.
Yes.
Yes. We haven't heard anything about that scheme for some time.
Oh, it's ongoing.
Well,
every home that Mr. Governor has commissioned is on the Lagos Home Scheme.
So
they're
done,
all on that scheme.
The first ones were done via raffle, weren't they?
Yes.
Are they
so
still
right
done via
now,
raffle?
Okay, so and you know, when you do it by raffle, it has its good points because people see it as transparent.
Yes.
But what if you go into the raffle and then you don't have the income to support that?
To claim your prize.
Exactly.
Yes.
So right now, like I said, we do the pre-qualification. They look at your income over a period of time.
So how does one enter the scheme?
Application. It's online. There's the Lagos State Mortgage Board. There's the Ministry of Housing in Alausa. You can get the form. Some of your people are on the scheme. Some of them know about it.
Which site do people go to fill the form?
It's Lagos State Mortgage Board or
Lagos
the Ministry
State
of Housing.
Mortgage Board.
Yes,
if you want to
but
join
you can
the
also
scheme.
go to Necker House to pick up your form.
Okay,
Necker House in CBD in Alausa here.
Yes.
You can pick up a form. We have another 400 and something units coming up in Shongotedo. We have another Ibeshe 2 is also coming up, the one that the governor recently commissioned. Where is Ibeshe? Ibeshe is Ikorodu. It's a waterfront project in Ikorodu. It's beautiful. I can see. You can see my eyes are changing already. It's a waterfront project. It's beautiful. We commissioned about 400 and something units last month in Ibeshe. Okay. We also have Odonosa coming up. It's 660 units. It's in Agbowa. And we have Badagry. We have 252 homes up for grabs in Badagry. It's a joint venture project that the Lagos State Ministry of Housing did.
Yeah, when the red line is ready, then people can live in Badagry and work in Lagos.
I can tell you that by the end of next year, you will see a line ready in that access. I can assure you, you can take that to the bank.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Okusaga, One of the challenges here that people have seen about the sustainability of government projects is ownership on the part of the people. There have been times when governments commission a project, and for whatever reason, you see vandalism, you see destruction of those things because for whatever reason, I don't even know how that makes sense sometimes. So in terms of ownership of this project, so as to foster its sustainability, what are the things that you think needs to be done by government for the people to own the process and be able themselves to protect it?
I'm going to mention 3 things. First, Madam has been talking about a social program. We have to make sure consciously by this administration to move from just being a social program to be a private sector driven program. You know that we have always had problems sustaining government programs. But by the time we get the private sector involved, like all these schemes, yes, we look at it, but the private sector must be involved. Don't forget that the private sector also raises funds from the capital market, which anybody can become owners of that system. So we have the real estate investment trust that should also be considered as moving from social to become private sector driven. It is secondly, we don't talk about when we talk about ownership and vandalization. The insurance industry has been tested during the NSAS program, and there are a lot of vandalization, but I think most of the claims have been paid. It was in the tune of almost 9 billion from what I heard, and they've been paying. So we need to carry the insurance industry along to ensure that the risks that are transferable are transferred to them. And the more premium that's being paid to the insurance company, the more they can even fund this real estate investment project because they have long-term funds, better than even the banks, and they also accept the risk by taking a premium. And lastly, is government consciously selling the idea to people to make sure that, and we don't spoil what benefits you. What we see when it comes to government is that, like for example, take the example of the employment scheme that was done by Governor Ambode. They actually didn't. They only disbursed funds to microfinance banks that are state level. When 88% of the microfinance bank are unit MFBs. So these are things mistake government make. So now, how popular is the employment scheme? Now, this is something they are doing again, that they are doing a housing scheme. Well, the governor is trying, he's doing better than, he has background in finance, in banking, and also in real estate. So he's doing better than an average government policy we're seeing as a private sector person. But we need to do more to consciously ensure it is done by private sector, because we have seen it maybe when you create a good regulatory framework, you can see what is happening with the electricity, especially in Lagos. The electricity has been stable. In my estate, when they take light, I see on the platform they are calling the MD of the distribution company that we don't have light. They are giving comment when they will bring light back. This is because it's private sector driven. Here's a good social program that's carrying the private sector along, almost transited from just a social program to a private sector-led program where the government take a back seat in creating framework for this private sector to run this thing for it to be sustainable. Rental monthly payment is good, but how sustainable it is with being a social program. Don't forget that we have an inefficient civil service, and that's our biggest problem in Nigeria. We work very hard day and night. A private sector working day and night to fund an inefficient and corrupt civil service. So if these things going to be run by civil service, you start seeing racketeering, favoritism coming up very soon. And they'll start giving you some bills that are not that is not, that you have to pay this certain amount, 5,000, 2,000 in this place to make sure this is done.
Okay.
They start increasing things. So those are things we should watch and ensure it is. We ensure at the end of the day, before this government leaves, it is a private sector-led initiative,
Okay.
not just a government social program.
You definitely have some responses.
maybe Mr. Okusaga missed it from the onset. It is going to be private sector
Going
driven.
to be.
Yes, it is a private sector driven initiative. I said it from the onset that it's a consortium
Yep.
of private sector individuals and financiers who would, and anyway, the financiers are always from the private sector. And I also want to agree with him, when you know government means business, when it comes up with a program, it is always in collaboration with the private sector. What the government is going to be doing is guaranteeing and making sure that there's a level playing field. The tenants are not taxed or given ridiculous rates. And that's why we would step in as a government and make sure that those rates are rates that are minimal. And that is the social investment part of it that government is doing. Making sure that you're not going out there and somebody's telling you, because you're on the scheme, you're going to be paying 23%. No.
Is there any civil servant interface along in the value chain?
None. I can assure you that.
So no risk of what Mr. Okusaga says?
None. Absolutely none.
Pay 2,000
It
naira
is
to
a
get this
private sector. It's going to be solely driven by the private sector. The government is going to guarantee some aspects of it and sit down there as a guarantor and as a regulator. Definitely not public sector driven.
Okay. Well, we have to thank you very much for your time this morning. Toke Benson Awoyinka, a special advisor on housing to the Lagos State Governor. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
As well as Babajide Okusaga, who is a real estate player. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
Thank you very much.
So, Sunrise continues in a moment, and next, it's health related. Is that why it's health related?
Yes.
We'll be
Right on
back.
cue.
Time they say was for nobody. That same time, the time we don't get time.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, we're going to be talking medical right now and health, as my partner said before we went on break. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in women worldwide. In 2018, an estimated 570,000 women were diagnosed with cervical cancer worldwide, and about 311,000 of them died from the disease. Ooh. That's more than half. That's grim. So we're going to be looking at the cervical cancer-free Nigeria. And joining us this morning, we have three women who are joining us
With you.
They're all joining us via Zoom. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Amy Bart. Dr. Bart is the founder of the US-based nonprofit organization Global Oncology, GO. She's an associate professor of medicine and genetics at the Stanford University. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
We also have May Chioma Odiakosa, and she is an ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. May, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, who is the First Lady of Kebbi State and founder and CEO of Medicaid Cancer Foundation, and serves as a global ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Bart. How we have seen the global figures 570,000 women globally, out of which 311,000 died. That is a huge figure. But let's break it down to Nigeria. What are the figures like concerning Nigeria? Do the figures even exist?
So the figures do exist. They're not as accurate as we'd like them to be. But I think the most staggering figure for me is that one woman dies of cervical cancer every 8 hours in Nigeria, 3 per day, approximately 11,000 per year. And if you ask me my opinion, I would say that is probably a vast underestimate because a lot of women with cervical cancer never come to medical attention. And so in Nigeria, it is a huge problem. It is the second most common cancer killer in all of Nigeria. And as you know, both breast and cervical cancer are major issues for our Nigerian mothers, sisters, grandmothers, and so on.
Dr. Shinkafi Bagudu, you being a doctor, maybe you can help us out with this question. What are the causes of cervical cancer?
Well, cervical cancer has been found the single most important cause of cervical cancer is infection with the human papillomavirus. HPV is a sexually transmitted virus that is preponderant, but with multiple sexual partners, there is a tendency to carry the infection. There are many types of HPV, and it causes different cancers, cancer of the anus, penis, oral cancer. But the one that concerns women, obviously, is the cervical cancer. Also, there are other co-associated factors such as age, obviously sex, only women get it, obesity, lifestyle, things like obesity is one of the lifestyle issues, poor eating, and so on. But again, I must reiterate, the single most important causative factor that has been found to be associated with cervical cancer directly is infection with HPV virus. And this is the one cancer that we know the cause, and so we can eliminate.
May, we're told that you lost your sister 2 years ago to cervical cancer. It's not too late to express our condolences to you. And since then, you have become an ambassador for a cervical cancer-free Nigeria. What have you had to do as a global ambassador?
Thank you so much for having me. One of the most important things that we as Nigerians overlook is education, talking about this curable disease and knowing that if it's caught in time, the survival rate will go up. So I am committed to spread the word about this disease. I'm also helping to push so that we can get funding to bring the HPV vaccine to Nigeria. I'm going to be involved in fundraiser that happening up Northern California. We're going to have fundraiser here in Los Angeles as well. But my whole goal is to not stop talking about this disease that took my sister away. I would not stop spreading the word and letting people know that if it's caught in time, it's curable. And to let people know that it's a disease that when you see how my sister suffered, you don't wish that on anyone at all. So my life mission is to keep talking, volunteering, showing up for those that can't show up.
Thanks.
Dr. Batts, you heard Madam May just talk now about education. How much of that would you say is out there? And what are the shortfalls that you can adduce?
Thank you for that question. I think, general education around medical issues is ever improving. I think one of the unfortunate side effects of the COVID pandemic is that we all have become much more aware of health issues, of things like vaccines, et cetera. Unfortunately, most of the medical education that's out there around cervical cancer, which is admittedly pretty limited when you think about education that's geared for your everyday person, is really dry and quite boring. And that's one of the things that we've really tried to overcome. We've tried to provide education to a broad range of individuals in an enticing way. You may ask me, well, what did we decide to do? Many of you will be familiar with the show Sesame Street, which used Muppets to kind of act out everyday scenarios. And what was noted was this was one of the best ways to educate young people, is to make it entertainment. And so taking inspiration from that, what we did a few years ago at Global Oncology was to develop something fun, which was a comic book focused on teaching people about vaccines, immunity, cancer, cervical cancer in particular, and HPV. As you heard from Dr. Bagudu, HPV is the #1 cause of cervical cancer. And there has been a vaccine available to prevent HPV infection for nearly 2 decades now. Over 115 countries in the world have the vaccine broadly available, and Nigeria doesn't. So the Cervical Cancer Free campaign that we are running here today in Nigeria is intended to ensure that no woman ever dies of cervical cancer again as soon as we can get these vaccines out.
Okay. Excellency, can cervical cancer be detected early? And what are the symptoms?
Yes, it can be detected early. Obviously, being cervical, the cervix is the entrance to the woman's womb. So the symptoms that a woman can get will be related to that: bleeding, some pain, irregular menstruation. But the easiest way to detect it is by screening. We advocate that sexually active women get screened at least every 2 years. From the age of 35, it's recommended that you get a screening test. And the screening test, there are various types. There are some ones that are more suited to low-resource settings like ours, such as the visual inspection under acetic acid, which involves just staining the cervix with a stain and then looking at the cells to see if they are atypical cells. There's a WHO global strategy that is aiming to eliminate cervical cancer, and the strategy is based on vaccination. It's called the 90-17-90. So it's based on vaccinating 90% of girls, screening 70% of women, eligible women from the age of 35, and early treatment. So that screening that you mentioned is one of the cornerstones, and it's really very important because, again, like Chioma said, if it's detected early, then it can be treated. There are low-resource tools available to treat it, which is available in Nigeria, even though the vaccine isn't. But screening is very important. Again, screening is not available on our healthcare system, but at least women can get to a health center and get screened either using a pap smear, VIA, or the HPV DNA testing.
Well, Your Excellency, when you talk about this thing, the question that came to my mind for you would be: are there some pushbacks based on culture or any of those things that may have made it difficult to get the people to access the health opportunities that are around them?
It's not culture. Culture affects health-seeking behavior, I agree, but there is a lack of availability. With ₦1 million in your hand today, you really have to work hard to find an HPV vaccine in Nigeria. It's available privately. It doesn't cost ₦1 million. It costs about between 10,000 to 12,000 naira, and you need 2 doses. But it's just not available in the country. And that is the systemic issue. There is a worldwide production issue. The demand far outweighs the supply. The high-income countries are giving it's already on their immunization schedules. For us, it is not. It's not one of the recommended vaccines on the MPHCDA's schedule. And it's not given the way we give our BCG, DPT, and other childhood vaccines. And all young girls from the age of 13 are supposed to be able to access it. So before we get to talking about culture, it has to be available. And then we can, of course, this is part of the things that we're doing in creating awareness, trying to adopt, influence the health-seeking behavior and making people aware that there is a vaccine. And the earlier and harder we do it, the more it will be accepted when eventually, as we hope and we're working towards, it is introduced by the government.
Well, madam, I have to tell you, I can't wait for this program to be over for me to get to read this comic book, Dr. Obi, Cancer Chronicles, Volume 1. When you came across, when you first heard about this, Your Excellency, I'm still with you on this. The first question that would naturally come to me about this would be, how do we cascade this to our locals?
Well, the comic book is in a way that it's relatable. Dr. Obi, even the name Obi is a relatable thing, and we can also see that it's a cartoon, and so people can read it more easily. It's not like a hard textbook or leaflet that has technical words. It's in an easy language. Then you might say how many of our people really can read, which is where ambassadors and advocates and non-governmentals like us come in by having outreaches, working with community gatekeepers, having school health programs, going to schools and educating them far and wide. For me, in Kebbi, we do a lot of school outreaches, and we go to the villages and the rural areas, enlist the support of the traditional religious leaders, explain to them what cancer is all about. Because going back to the cultural issue and beliefs, superstitious beliefs, our people tend to have all kinds of beliefs circled around illness, and there are all sorts of superstitious things. So we have to dispel their minds of these beliefs and give them the right, accurate information that is backed up by science.
Is there any way, Madam May, that you think that this comic book can help younger children to change lifestyles along the line to make things better so that they don't even get to the point where we are looking for any HPV for them?
I think the kids being aware of what this cervical cancer is, I think having them discuss this with their friends, their sisters, their brothers, it's very important because it puts the word out there. They're aware of it. They know that it's curable, and they know that also the vaccine helps. It opens up the opportunity for people to talk about something in our culture is considered taboo, right? When the younger people are able to discuss this with their friends, their teachers, their church members, their mom and dad, then we're open to discussing very difficult situations, but they're aware of it. Most of the people I spoke to when my sister got ill didn't know about cervical cancer, didn't know that it was curable. I didn't know how easily you can get it or whether it's curable. So I think this book, this cartoon is really a handbook for the future so that the kids are getting to the point where they're very aware, as opposed to being in your 30s and your 20s and you don't even know anything about cervical cancer.
You know, generally, madam, the fears created by the mere thought of cancer is there. I don't know, but let's see a little bit of that video that you just saw, in a little while, and then we'll come back to talk about some of the other issues that can help us to address this matter.
Obi Cancer Chronicles, Volume 1, Cervical Cancer and the HPV Vaccine. Our story begins in Lagos, Nigeria. In this bustling city, we find three young people, Aisha, Nato, and Timmy.
Did you guys see Black Panther yet?
Yes, it was amazing. It was great to see an African superhero.
It was good.
What do you mean good? It was the best movie ever.
Aisha, you look a little sad. Is everything okay?
Well, not really.
What's wrong?
I found out my auntie has something called cervical cancer.
No, That's terrible.
Is she okay?
Well, the doctor says she should be fine, but I'm worried I'm going to get it.
Well, have you seen your auntie recently?
Yes, she lives with us, but she mostly stays in her room. I mean, you can only get cancer if you touch somebody with cancer, right?
No, I heard you can get cancer from bad juju.
That is not right at all. Everyone knows that cancer is caused by sin. If you do something evil, bad things will happen to you like disease and sickness.
My auntie isn't evil. She's so nice.
Oh, excuse me, children. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but none of your ideas are correct.
Says who?
Well, I do. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Orisa Obi. However, you can call me Doc. It is important that you learn the truth about cancer and not just a bunch of nonsense.
Okay, Doc. What kind of cancer?
I want to know too.
Well, let me show you. I'll start from the beginning. Cellular reproduction is a normal process, allowing our tissues, organs, and body to be healthy. Cells must grow, divide, and die in a controlled and orderly way. But
You could go on and on with that one.
Quite interesting.
I mean, those ugu-headed things, I don't know. So that is one thing, and I'm pretty sure that it's something impressive, Madam May. But you see the fears, okay, those children, for instance, I mean, those are their realities.
Yeah.
And that is for those who have the information at all. Many children don't even get to hear about it. And then that girl, as you saw in the comic book, I'm sure you're aware of it, she's afraid she was going to get it. So the fears created around, the issue of cancer is something that definitely is a little scary. How do you see this comic book helping to navigate that murky water?
Let me tell you, when my sister was sick, I came home from work and she was arguing with someone on the phone. And after I said, "What's wrong?" She said people are spreading rumors about her having cervical cancer. And she didn't want people to know she had it. And I hear she is fighting for her life, right? And she's worried about what people are saying about cervical cancer, because the information most people have is that if you have that cancer, you must have been promiscuous or done something wrong, just like the kids in the cartoon said. So I think it's important that we expose ourselves, our children, our mothers, our brothers and sisters earlier on to see what this cancer is really all about. That helps in seeking screening. That helps in understanding there's no shame that you have this cancer. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just a sickness that you have. And also to be able to ask for help earlier on, as opposed to worrying what some other person is saying. This generation of kids reading this book will be able to be open about what they're feeling, be open to accepting what the cure could be, as opposed to you're fighting for your life and you're worried about someone having some misconception about your illness, which you had nothing to do with it.
Okay. All right, Dr. Bhatt, Aisha expressed a fear in that little cartoon that we just watched, and her fear was she's afraid that she's going to get it because her aunt has it. So is it in any way hereditary?
So cervical cancer is not hereditary. There are some cancers that are, but they make up a very small subset of the total cancers that we see. And so that's one of the things that this video tries to get into, is dispelling myths and fears. In this case, there's no way that Aisha is going to catch the disease from her aunt, and there's no way also that she's going to inherit it. And so, one of the things that I think I really love about this video is it brings these characters to life. It brings these fears and concerns that often we're too embarrassed to talk about out into the public. And the video is publicly and freely available on YouTube. So if kids want to see either our comic book or the video, they're all available on the cervicalcancerfree.org website.
How often should a woman be tested for that cancer?
So it depends from country to country. Most countries, as Dr. Bagudu mentioned, usually screen about every 2 years from the time of initial sexual intercourse. But that can vary a lot. For women who are in monogamous long-term relationships, sometimes that is extended out. But for the most part, every 2 years is what is recommended right now in Nigeria, and that's an excellent screening schedule.
So, Your Excellency, this is the word that is out now. Do you know if there are any other products beside the comic book that maybe people can have access to? Of course, we have seen that there is a video. Are there other materials that people might need to get access to information about cervical cancer?
Absolutely. There is a lot of information out there. And I might add that some of them are in local dialects. The comic book is in English, but we have the Medicaid Foundation has a short drama in Hausa. There are many organizations that have made there are CDs that you can download online in the 3 main Nigerian languages that talks about all the cancers, particularly breast and cervical. There tends to be a focus on those two because they're the commonest ones. So there is a lot of material out there online, and there are many non-governmentals that are doing great jobs going around right into hard-to-reach areas, showing videos like this, as well as offering free screening.
So what would be your final word, madam, to everyone listening and watching you right now concerning this issue?
Well, the most important thing, either male or female, is to know your body. At all times, know your body and know what is normal. The minute there's something abnormal, and particularly if we zone down to cervical cancer now, when a woman starts to have irregular bleeding, when she starts to have bleeding after intercourse, when she feels that there's something wrong with her body, then the first place to go to seek help is to the health facility that is near you, and keep on going back and insisting that there is something wrong and get tested. There's no point in hiding it and stigmatizing people because the disease only gets worse, and that is what we see in our communities. We only get to see them in the hospitals when they have reached an advanced stage, and so the death rate is very high. It's not that the disease kills, it's because of the late presentation that we get in low middle-income countries that makes the mortality so high. I must also add that it's important to live a healthy lifestyle, exercise regularly, eat the right kind of food, and seek help and screening when necessary.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, First Lady of Kebbi State, and also founder and CEO of Medicaid Cancer Foundation, and she is a global ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. And we also had as guests on this segment, Chioma Odiakosa, who is ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. She's based in Los Angeles. And we also had Dr. Amy Barth, founder of the US-based nonprofit organization Global Oncology, GO. She's Associate Professor of Medicine and Genetics at the Stanford University. Thank you all very much, ladies, for joining us and sharing your insights with us this morning. We wish you luck in the work that you're doing, and we hope that you will get help from other media houses like ours so that we can tell more people about this cancer and cut down the numbers, because 3 a day is much too high for women to be dying of cancer in Nigeria.
Absolutely. Well, as you can see, we want to talk about St. Augustine University, or also known as Augustine University, a private Catholic-owned university located in Ilara, a town in Ekpe. Ekpe local government area of Lagos State, southwestern Nigeria, just in case you don't know. Now, the university upholds a noble tradition of Catholic higher education, of achieving intellectual, cultural, and moral excellence by preparing them for leadership and enterprise. Professor Christopher Odetunde joins us this morning to talk about this. He is Vice Chancellor of the university. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know, as we said just before we came on air, the first thing that scares people about private university, cost, and is it sustainable?
With respect to the cost, I think when you look at universities in general, education in general, it is a means of giving your children their inheritance. And it will not cost you much to train them so that they can keep training themselves when you are long gone. Secondly, the cost. There are secondary schools in Nigeria that are paying more than 2 million naira for just the education. But in most of the private universities, especially Augustine University, the Archdiocese is putting their money into it, augmenting the tuition for the students. So, and our cost is about, the maximum is 800,000 naira for...
Is that for the whole year or
for the whole year.
Really?
Yes. So it's not that much if you look at it from that point of view.
That's the website. I can see that.
Yes, that's our website.
Okay. What are the information that are available on the website? It's easy to assume it's everything, but what's been the experience? Let me even talk about that. What's been the experience of your own experience since this university started?
Well, to begin with, the first time I went to the university was my first visit, and I was pleasantly surprised by the serene environment. And those serene environments are so good for studying, and our students are very happy with it. Those that come to visit us, after they leave, they always give us compliments. And I think it's the vision of the visionaire, Cardinal Okoje, that started the university. And the present visitor is also continuing in this type of situation.
What is the vision? Because it's easy for anyone to assume that it's all money. I mean, it's a private university and all of that. So what's the vision? Why there are those who would argue that we have way too many schools already, universities especially.
I don't think, I'll talk about the vision, but you will never have too many universities. Since federal government is not able to provide all that we need, somebody else has to provide. So the private universities are just, the lacuna that is left is covered by the private universities. Now, the vision of a Catholic university, if you look at, during the olden times, the monasteries were centers of excellence and scholarship. And these monasteries were converted into universities. So our vision, our mission is to make sure that we get kids that are well positioned to take over the system and for them to be able to lead the country in development.
Professor, yes. I'm a beneficiary of the Catholic upbringing. And I must say that my parents had no regrets for sending me to a Catholic school, even though they were not a Catholic family. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
The Catholic upbringing. Does this extend also to the university? Will we see that kind of culture also in, well, they're not young adolescents anymore. They are young adults.
Adults.
Yes, at the university level.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I'm glad to also tell you that I'm a recipient of a Catholic upbringing. Although I've been a Catholic all my life, but I've seen in the north where I came from, I've seen a lot of our Muslim brothers brought up in the universities, and they are doing very well now. The way we structure the universities that we bring the students to a wholesome human development, both spiritual, academics, and physical. So our students are given these opportunities to be developed, and we're very happy with it. And indeed, some of their parents do call us and appreciate us for the type of environment the students are studying and how we deal with them.
Encouraging. What about the nature of the courses being offered at the university? It's a young university, so we don't expect them to have all the faculties and all the departments that the other established universities do have. So what is the forte of the Augustine University?
Indeed, when the university was started, they started with English and philosophy, those typical
humanities,
which is okay because we need them all. But now we are going into other areas. We're into cybersecurity, especially because our banks are being raided by Yahoo boys. So you must have people that can deal with it instantly. As they are creating their own system, these guys are also doing the same. So, for instance, we have cybersecurity, software engineering, we have political science now, we have mass comm, and these areas will bring a lot of students in, especially with our serene environment.
Okay, well, as Alero mentioned earlier, they are not adolescents, they are young adults. Quite a lot of energy.
Yes.
So with all that one is hearing about student communities and what they do to themselves and all of that, while the Catholic system may be high on morals, the students are coming from various backgrounds.
Yes.
How do we manage those diversities and to ensure that those moral codes are not breached while on campus?
To begin with, our faculty members and people working with us, they're also coming from diverse environments. So they can deal with these students whichever way they want to do it, they are capable of handling them. But notwithstanding, even if you can't have 100%, where our university believes in zero tolerance, in cultism, in exam malpractice, and the rest of it. But we get our parents involved. I think that's the key. You get parents involved so that if something happens, the parents are also involved. They can advise their children. But most importantly, the moral training of the children ought to come from home. There's nothing you can do if coming from that home is not well, the kid is not well behaved.
But Prof,
he comes then to the university, there's no, we accept some.
But Prof, you know that it is one thing to teach the children, it's another thing for the children to accept the teaching.
Yes.
So sometimes some students, for instance, do not represent the codes at home. You would remember, of course, the Mutalab story. The father is not that kind of person, and then the boy, ends up being who he is. So that's the background against which I'm speaking. How do we ensure that when those students come and they begin to manifest certain things that are unbecoming,
yes,
that they don't, what's the word now? Become cancerous, if I can use the term, in the entire system?
If I can give you an example. Suppose a kid is taking drugs, and you find out. What do? We make sure that we send that kid to a hospital so that they can moderate and make sure that at the end of that moderation, if they find him worthy of coming back to the campus, they bring him back. If not, there's nothing we can do.
Okay, you said that the university has zero tolerance for cultism. And I smiled when you said that. How exactly do you do that?
Well, we monitor it.
Because
Monitor them.
kids in cults are very secretive.
I know.
Because we have heard of certain people who turned out to be in cults and we were, no, this cannot be true. The most unlikely person is the head of the cult.
I know.
So how exactly do you do it?
Well, when you say students are in cult, that means somebody must have found out. There's no way you can do everything and somebody will not find out something about you. And when we do, we isolate such students and counsel them.
Okay.
We have counselors on campus that will advise them. We call their parents, we let them know before we take further steps. And if they don't change, they are taken out of the university.
Well, the school has been on since November 2015.
2015.
Have you had such experiences at all?
Such what?
Such experiences.
No, I haven't.
You have not found anybody belonging to any kind of cult?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
So far. Maybe I'll find tomorrow, but I'm not.
I'm touching wood on your behalf.
I'm knocking on wood.
Well, how do you of course know about this whole TETFund story and its not too pleasant effects on private universities? What's the relationship and how is it managed?
If you look at the history of TETFund was created to help the universities get some more funding to help the faculties to grow. That was then. But the law that created TETFund, laws are not static. Laws are supposed to be dynamic. So, since the private universities came in, they ought to revisit that law. I understand the purpose for which it was created, but now situations have changed. How did they get the TETFund? The way is that every company puts in certain percentage into that account, and the money grows. Now, you and I, because we're working, whether you're in private or public, you are also contributing to that fund. Therefore, we cannot discriminate against the people because we're all taxpayers contributing to that fund. And that's why we're praying that the government will revisit that law and change it somehow so that it's more competitive. It's not that we're giving you the money, you compete for it. If you qualify, you'll be given. If you are not, it's fair. It's a fair game.
Now, what are your plans for postgraduate studies?
The NUC has granted us postgraduate. Right now, we are on the verge of starting our postgraduate in 3 areas. Once you have graduated at least 3 sets in the university, you can start postgraduate.
Okay.
So we are ready for postgraduate now. Not only
ready
that.
As in what's 2023 session?
Well, we're thinking of 2023.
Okay, and what faculties will be the first ones that
you're
looking at?
Accounting, economics, computer science, physics, all of those departments.
Yes. Since you mentioned physics, Professor, what are your laboratories like?
Our laboratories are fine, but we are trying to get a bigger laboratory as we increase the number of students. So that's what we are doing right now. We've discussed it with the archdiocese. They are aware of it, and they are willing to help us grow those labs.
Is there any field that you would say, if you want the best, okay, we have several others, but if you want the best of this particular field, come to
St. Augustine.
Computer science, political science, mass comm, in which case I'm hoping that Professor, you guys will invite.
After only 5-6 years.
Yes. We are okay.
I like your confidence.
I'm confident. Listen, that's why I'm there, to be the confident builder.
Hey, Center go.
And remember, we're also bringing on, from what you said, we are bringing in law, engineering, nursing.
From when?
From
what?
As from, well, it's in our academic brief.
Okay.
We've started making plans for them. And the buildings are ongoing as we talk.
I see that, you know, even on the front, on the website.
Yes.
Can I say the front page of your website? I only see fisheries and aquaculture, not agriculture in its full scheme. Is that deliberate?
It's deliberate.
Okay.
We don't want to start agriculture yet because fishery is easier to manage for now. We're a small university. And you see, our growth must be purposeful. There's no need to grow the university. Listen, if you grow the university, you have two things going for you. One,
you don't want to be a UI.
Yeah, we want to, but not now. But if you grow the university, the infrastructures must also accompany.
Yeah.
Therefore, we don't want to overgrow the university such that the very purpose of keeping all the students in the hostels will be defeated. Once they are defeated, we lose control of the university.
Okay. Now, is it because is it fisheries and aquaculture because it's ekbe and there's a lot of fish there?
Well, that could be part of it, but it is easier to manage fishery and aquaculture.
Okay.
And also we are in ekbe.
Where there's plenty of fish.
There's plenty of fish. So we can complement.
But I'm sure you have fish farms on campus.
We do.
Okay. So it doesn't matter that you're in Ekwe.
Yes. So as you said, you know, it's been 7 years. I'm going to ask about experience again. And I ask it advisedly. More and more universities are springing up here and there. Getting confidence in the university system in country is quite something. You definitely have been in the academics for long enough to know some of the issues that we have in terms of education in the country. There are those who are putting big question marks on the education policy of the country. There are those who are arguing that it's not futuristic. It's not really preparing students for the next generation. It's just something to get by the day and all of that. So when they talk about development and they talk about growth, it's really not as confidence building, if I can use your words, as that, because the policy isn't looking forward. It's just looking at maybe today or the nearest future. How do you react to that?
Well, if you look at, I'm sorry to say that education in Nigeria is not focused. And I'll tell you why. Why do we grow the universities? What's the purpose? If the purpose is to develop the university itself, we are failing. Because the government, if you were doing business, if you put a lot of money into business, at the end of 3-4 years, you must be asking yourself, how is this person performing? There is a lot of smart Nigerians, and we can see that all over the world. But are we challenged within Nigeria? No. People just want to go to university because I want to have a degree. What is the degree doing for you?
Yes.
You must ask yourself, at the end of this, what will I use my degree for? I've seen people that went to pharmacy in the US, Nigerians, they went into law, and they're great lawyers. The university must be a way to prepare the students for challenges, any challenges in the world. And what we do in our university is to be pragmatic. How do we become pragmatic? Let's look at our accounting, for example. By the time the students finish their accounting, they will have been ICANN compatible. Okay? The students can be sure that they have their ICANN because we're in collaboration with ICANN. And I think that's what we need to do in every of the courses we're teaching, to be more pragmatic. I've seen people with first classes, and I'm sure you know. You see people with first classes, I just know how to read, you get first class, and at the end of it, you say, okay, what did I do to get this thing for?
Yeah.
And I've seen people with third classes, believe me, they are ruling the country.
To corroborate what you said, our professionals don't get challenged enough. I recall what I read, I think it was about China or Japan, where the president said, look, I want our country to have the fastest train in the world. So all of you engineers, get together. These are your timelines. I want you to develop the fastest train in the world.
And they did.
Professionals don't get challenged like that in our country.
Nigeria.
Which speaks to... Okay.
Which is the reason why a lot of them are going away to other countries where they can
be challenged,
exercise their skills and be challenged and work. Here is just the normal run-of-the-mill kind of thing that an engineer does.
Which also raises the question again. If we're going to have a futuristic education system in the country, Prof, what should we be doing? What should we be looking at? In what direction would you suggest that we focus?
Okay. For me, I look at what are we lacking. What we're lacking, everybody complains of electricity. Everybody complains of
engineers.
The road. We engineers, we complain. You said it best. Has the government ever said, I've been paying so much money on you? You electrical engineers, go and find ways to fix the
NEPA.
Electricity.
Yes.
To NEPA. You civil engineers, go there to fix the roads. Mechanical engineers, join them. Okay? If you look at the way education is, I'll give you, we have problem in Nigeria. The title. If you talk to somebody and he says, I can do this, do you have a degree? The first thing, no, you set him aside. Let me look at my area, aerospace engineering. Know the history of aerospace engineering. Who started it? Mere bicycle repair people on the road. They were bicycle repairers, the Wright brothers. And today, you and I will fly, will smile, as if it was a professor that did it. So until we challenge ourselves, which is why when I got to Augustine University, one of the things I did was, look, if you want to join us here as a lecturer, I don't want somebody that will just take a textbook that is written. Any idiot can read a textbook and vomit. What are you adding? What value are you adding to my students? If you are not adding any value, I don't need you. That's the purpose of a private university. You can challenge them. Public university, once you get them there, you can't get them out. Right? And number two about private universities is that, look, if you say you are going for a 4-year course, it's a 4-year course. It's not extended to 10 years.
So no strikes?
No strikes. All
right.
Assurance?
Yes, assurance.
No IPs?
I have to give it to those who are...
you are marketing your university.
Yes. I can assure you, I appreciate those who are helping us, who are striking, because they are doing it for a purpose. For so many reasons, we couldn't have gotten what we got. So I'm not pushing them aside. I still love them. But we can guarantee you that if it's 5 years, you're 5 years.
Well, what else would I expect you to say? But someone is just asking you a question now that, okay, in the UK, she cited an example of a UK where without a BSc, your work experience qualifies you to sit for masters. Is that something that the St. Augustine University might be considering?
Well, we are following the NUC guideline.
Okay.
Okay.
But NUC, I'll give them credit. NUC is looking towards adjusting some of their policies. And we wait to see the policy.
Okay.
Because you don't have to have a first degree to be an outstanding inventor. I know that for sure.
Well, social media had a young 15-year-old boy who did a motorcycle out of a bicycle.
Interesting.
So we are really excited at Augustine University because all these things I'm preaching to you now, we are following up with it.
Okay. We can only wait.
Please.
And, most certainly
wish
we
you
will
all
wait.
the best.
Shebi is Ekpe?
Yes. Come to Ekpe. Come and visit us in Ekpe.
It's just down the road.
It's down the road.
I'll think about that. Professor Christopher Odetunde, Vice Chancellor, Augustine University, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's nice visiting with you.
This morning. Okay.
Thank you.
So it's the home stretch right after now. Do stay with us.
That's in time, a time we don't get time.
We have limited time. The time to be alive and the time to die. So live every day of your life.
It's time.
It's your last.
Joseph Chiaka Eke, otherwise known as Majid. He was looking very sad in that video, didn't he?
We'll find out why.
Yes.
Was it a time to be sad? Or a time to be happy?
Well, that song is called Time, isn't it, Majid?
Yes, it is.
Well, why were you looking so sad? Was it
Really
time to be sad?
It was the mood, the ambience of the...
What was the story that made you that sad?
I would say sad.
Well, your face was sad.
Yes, it wasn't really sad. It was just, I was just in the mood. I was very...
Very in the mood.
Very in the mood.
What was the mood?
I was very in the mood. Oh.
Well, Majid is a singer and songwriter, and he tells stories with his songs, as you can see from that video. And these stories seem to connect with nature. And he has several singles to his credit, including that one which we just saw, which is called Time. He also has another one called Lagos, and he has many others. Thank you for joining us this morning, Joseph.
Thank you for having me.
Or do you prefer to be called Majid?
Majid is fine.
Majid, okay. Now, tell us about yourself. How did you get into music?
Music has always been my...
music got into you?
Yeah, it got into me. Got into me.
And stayed?
It stayed, and it's going to stay forever. So,
is there music in your family?
Not really. It's not in my family at all.
Except in the bathroom. Okay.
No, it's not in my family at all. So yeah, I started music when I was in secondary school. And
where?
In Ogun State. When I was in GS2. At time I used to call up my mom sees money and just go to the studio and make music.
Mom, are you watching? He's telling the truth today, finally. Now you know where all that money went.
Yes. So yeah, I started music from then. I'll go to the studio, they will make trash music for me, but I was still...
What is called trash music?
Like, back then, you were just so eager and too much energy.
I gotta sing, I gotta
sing. And yeah, I was singing and other people were trying to sing too, because I was singing. So it was like, I'm a mentor. I'm a mentor on code. I'm a mentor on code. So yeah, I took it up and it became more serious, and boom.
Okay.
But you finished school?
I did. I finished school, mass communication and journalism.
You managed to finish
I
school
finished
in the middle of all this?
In the middle of all this. In the middle of leaving school to go to Lagos and...
Go to the studio. And jam. And all that.
I'm suspecting Majid this morning. How much of this came from the streets?
A lot.
I can tell.
A lot. Everything came from the streets. Everything. Because then when I was in school, I was on the streets too. Like I left home.
Jeez.
Yeah, I left home to do this music thing because it wasn't, nobody was seeing what I was seeing. It was just me seeing the picture. So
what did your parents have to say about all
normal
this?
African parents now. Normal African parents.
I will kill you.
I'll kill you now, yeah. Why are you doing this to us now? I'm like, cool down now. I'm not doing anything to you now. It's just me.
I just want to sing.
Yeah, I just want to sing and just impact people with my music. It's not that deep.
What were you seeing? Tell me that part. Because, how old were you when you were seeing these things?
I was like, I was 17, I guess. I was 17 then.
And you could see all kinds of things that no one else could see?
No one else. I consider myself...
a seer.
A gifted child. Yes. I saw.
I can hear this.
What did you see? What did you see?
I saw myself impacting people with my music. I saw myself doing things my age hasn't done yet.
At
so
17.
How much of impacting do you think your music has done?
I feel it's building up, it's piling up, it's still impacting people. I consider myself a mentor though, because yeah, I'm a young mentor.
At 17,
Yes.
you could see yourself in that light at the
Yes.
time. And you know that at that time, what year was this?
I can't remember, but I was 17 then.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I was 17.
You could see yourself in that light at that time,
Yeah.
at that age.
Yes.
Now, what could have made the difference for you? Because I'm pretty sure that there was other 17-year-olds who, when you look at them now, they are absolutely nothing close to seeing what you saw then or being where you are now. So what was the inspiration? What was the motivation that made you decide, I'm going to pursue this thing that is abstract while others are chasing shadows?
Was the environment I was in. The environment I was in was not conducive for my kind of person.
Where, in Lagos?
No, Ogun State.
In Ogun State, okay.
Yeah, it was...
Your parents lived in Ogun State?
Yes, they live in Ogun State. So it was an environment where so much negativity is so... The negativity there is so much and their minds are so caged there. So I was like, at this my age, I'm thinking about breaking free from this kind of mentality, this kind of mindset these people have. It wasn't easy, I won't lie. It wasn't easy because my family stayed there, right?
Majid,
they're still there.
You say you're a mentor, so that's where I'm trying to get to now, because I am personally, and I know she is as well, concerned about a whole population of young people who are generally visionless, should I say, who are confused, who have no idea what to do with their lives. And you, for whatever reason, at such young age in your life, there are many 17-year-olds, you have heard stories of this ritual killing and all those things
terrible.
now. So there are those who are like, they have no idea what to do with their lives. They're as confused as can be. But you at that age decided, I think I found something that I want to chase with all my vigor. If you're going to counsel anyone or give a path, a direction to anyone now, but look, you're not as hopeless as you think you are, which is what makes people do some untoward things. What would you be telling them?
Your environment is key. Your environment is key. Your environment is who you are. Right? If you're in an environment where your vision is different and the environment is not moving forward or adding to your vision, wasting your time.
You have to leave that environment.
Yes, you have to leave that environment. Leave your comfort zone. Your comfort zone. I left my parents. I left my family house. I was on the streets. Like, it was, it was somehow, but yeah, I left.
There are those who left home and went to the streets and never really got out.
Exactly.
So did that help you discover yourself and discover your purpose?
Alongside with what my mom always tells me, don't forget the son of who you are. Yes, always tells me that, keeps ringing in my head every single time, and it guides me. It guides me because I know what I want. I know my wants from my needs. So it's quite easy for me to go on the right path.
Now that you have found this path,
yes,
what's the journey been like for you? For how long have you been doing this now? What's the journey been?
I've been singing for 4 years now on the ground. I've been writing songs too. I write songs. I'm a producer too. I've been writing songs for most celebrities. You know, yes. And yeah, the journey has been amazing. Tough, but beautiful.
Talking about writing songs, in that video there was something that caught my ear. I was not paying attention to the video. And then suddenly I heard Toyota Corolla. And I asked my partner, I said, Toyota Corolla? What has that got to do with what he's singing? So, I mean, tell me, how did Toyota Corolla enter that story, please?
It's an experience. Because I sing out of experience. And Toyota Corolla is just one day I saw in the nighttime, I saw a couple of people in Toyota Corolla around my estate. And yes, normal thing now. That's how it came. It was, I don't know what they were doing, but that's how it came.
You just saw people in a Toyota Corolla and
Yes.
you began to sing about
No, there is more to it. The street,
there's no more to
it's
it.
the street that is
It's the
talking
street,
through this
yes.
guy. Talk. You haven't said what she wants to hear.
I have already. So yes, that's how it came on. That's how the
You
Toyota
saw
Corolla
people
came.
in Toyota Corolla and then
Yes.
you began to sing about Toyota.
Well, you see people in cars every day. Why didn't you sing about the
No,
Toyota
this one is
Camry?
it was
or-
at night. It was like around 2
in the
2
morning.
a.m. in the morning.
Mhm.
Are you doing inside Toyota Corolla by 2 a.m. in the
okay.
morning?
I think I cannot see what you're saying.
Yes.
I think I can now figure it too. All right. Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right, then.
you've had some influences I can see from your bio that we have now. Influences with a number of celebrities in Nigeria, as you said. But for you, what is the vision of Majid? You said you sing to impact people. What's the vision? What's the philosophy of your music? When you hear Majid's song, this is what you will hear.
When you hear my song, you hear what I'm feeling inside. You hear how I express myself. That's the only way I express how I feel. Music. I'm very weird. I'm a weirdo. So yeah, that's the only way.
Weirdos are not usually the ones who tell people that they are weird.
Oh yeah, but I'm telling myself I'm weird because I know I'm weird. So yes,
okay.
You hear a whole lot in my music. The pain, the anger, the love, the happiness in my music.
You sang Time.
Yes, I did.
What's it about?
Time is it's a song that I won't say about me, but it's a conscious song, a conscious music, a conscious music that brings you back to reality and makes you understand that you have less time to live. Don't waste your time doing nothing. Stand up, do something, make good use of your life. Don't just sit down there and be hoping for what's not going to come.
But you also know that many times when people talk about success, they attribute it to what they have, money and all those things. But you said what you want to do with your music is to impact people's lives. So there is a purpose to it.
Yes.
So you're saying that purpose matters a lot.
It does.
Okay. But purpose and money, which one comes first?
Purpose has to come first. Money will come alongside, definitely. Money will come alongside.
But how do you convince young people about that?
I don't need to convince them or anything. You just have to, I don't know, you just have to.
You need to convince them because to them, money is everything.
Money is not everything. That's the problem young people are facing now.
And doing
money
all kinds
is not
of things
everything.
to make money.
Money is just paper. It's the value on it that makes it something. Money is really nothing, trust me. Money can get you things, yes, sure. But to me, nothing. Money is nothing. It's really nothing.
Being a mentor now, how easy has it been when people come to you and say, okay, this is what I want to do? How do you see those things? When you hear about this whole ritual killing and all, how does it come to you? Especially coming from such young people.
It hurts me so bad. It hurts me so bad, but I'm not, how do I explain this? But it hurts me at the same time. It pisses me off because young people these days need guidance. They need guidance. They need somebody to always reassure them. And once they don't have that, it becomes a problem. It becomes a major problem. And I feel this our mind is our worst enemy. It's our worst enemy. And once you start thinking the wrong way, your body start adjusting to it.
Okay. So we have about 2 minutes to go. If you want to attract anyone, now what would you say about yourself that will make anyone say, okay, I want Majid?
What would I say about myself?
Yeah.
Please, attract me. You should attract me. Attract me.
What's next for Majid? What should we expect?
My body of work, Bittersweet. Hey, my body of work, Bittersweet, is one of a kind. It's a masterpiece.
When is it coming up?
March. It's coming up next month.
Okay.
My pain, my relationship problems, toxic relationships, everything.
Don't look at me. He's the one talking.
Toxic relationship.
Toxic relationship, happy ones, good ones, bad times. Sad ones, everything.
It's all there.
Violent ones, yes. It's all
Violent?
Violent ones. Girls be wild these days.
You're not a woman beater, are you?
No, not me. Why would...
Are you
impossible. Beaten? No, I wasn't really beating. Normal girl stuff, being throwing something at you and all those kind of vibe. But yeah, Bittersweet is coming next month, March. I hope you guys will enjoy it.
Is that what... the Lagos song is also on it, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Oh, really?
It's not on it.
Tell us about that one.
Lagos?
Yeah.
Sounds
like an Afrobeat.
Yes. From my voice, you know that Lagos has shown me shaggy. Lagos has shown me shaggy in this life. God.
Come on, man. It's Lagos.
Yes, exactly. It's Lagos.
And
exactly. Not welcome to Lagos. This is Lagos.
This is Lagos.
As your school.
Shine your eye.
Majid Joseph Chaka as Eke,
yes.
A singer called Majid. We have to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we can only wish you the very, very best.
Thank you
Hope
very
to hear more and more about you.
Yes, for sure.
Great things in the near and far future.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well done and all the best.
And stop seeing Toyota Corolla everywhere. And so, people, Majid wraps up our show for today. I thank you very much for staying with us through these, God knows how long it's been. We'll bring you a fresh edition next week. I'm Alero Edu, wishing you all the best.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and God bless you.
Bye.